questions for Bruce. Please wait for the mic. Start with Chris.
Hey Bruce, Chris Chapman, Fox Sports Las Vegas postgame show. What kind of changed between the first and second period? Because it seemed like the defensive effort really picked up for you guys.
Well, I think what changed is we realized we better get going, or we're going to be out of this game in a hurry, because the first period wasn't anywhere near good enough for us to our standard. And give them credit; they were ready to play. It's funny that debate, like a team that's played a lot lately is Vancouver, and they're on a back-to-back. So sometimes you have still some of that edge from playing, and then you run out of gas maybe later. And a team that doesn't starts slow but builds up, and that's kind of how we did it. Now we don't want to go down that road all the time at home. We want to start better. We've acknowledged that. So I think there's a little bit of discussion of where we needed to be better, and that was in front of the net. Both nets. They scored a goal, they kind of just beat us to that area, beat us to loose pucks and scored, and Carly does it to them, right? So that's the game a little bit against tight checking teams. You got to get inside eventually. Maybe special teams can tilt it. It didn't. Our kill was excellent. Our power play, their kill was excellent. So that's kind of what happened, I think, after the first period. We got going and found a little more room out there. That's a little bit on us to, give them some information what we're seeing. Build a little speed, and eventually that led to the first goal and a few more opportunities. And the second goal was all net front, like their first goal. So that's what I think happened. The compete level went up in the slot area.
He's always so humble when he talks to us, but Aiden makes that huge save right after they scored the goal. So, in the grand scheme of things, just how big of a save was that for the rest
Well,
of the game?
early in the game, you could say, well, there's lots of hockey left, but now it becomes 2-0, 2 quick ones. And all of a sudden, it may be like they're thinking, okay, we're a good defense. We just got to get to our game now. We don't have to do anything fancy, and we can get this one to the finish line because they check well. Now that's a long way to go. We'll have a lot to say about that, but it could have demoralized us for a while, and who knows, right? But it's the old what ifs. But we needed it, and when you win a game like tonight, I'm glad you brought it up because sometimes you forget about that type of save. So good for him. We needed it, and we didn't need a ton of saves tonight. I think neither team generated a lot, but that was a very timely one and had a lot to do with us winning.
Danny, then Willie.
Hey Bruce, Danny Webster, Las Vegas Review Journal. You touched on it a couple days ago about winning these kinds of games. I think one-goal games in particular, you guys have been very good, but going into the third tied, I think it's 5-0-3 this year. Just how important are these games now for later in the year, and how much does that build character as the year goes on?
Well, it's important now to accumulate points and get yourself in a position to be able to play in the tournament at the end of the year, right? So that's how important it is now. You can't let these games get away from you. You'll be really kicking and scratching later, so that's important. It's important for your psyche for later on to know that you can be in these games because they tend to get closer as they get more important towards the end of the year in playoffs. So you have to be comfortable in these games. You have to use your whole bench. Maybe not exactly equitable, but every guy has to feel comfortable that they can do their job and help you win in those situations and check well and extend the lead if need be. But if that's not there, then be able to hold the lead. I just think good teams don't panic in those situations. They don't take bad penalties. Now we did take a penalty, but I think it was a puck battle, one that wasn't a hooking or diving out of position. It was just one of those unfortunate things, and that's why it matters. Character building. You got a lot of Stanley Cup champions in there, so they know what it's like. They've been through this at different parts of the year throughout their careers, and more important parts in December. So they understand the value in it. And not every game is going to be fun, up and down the ice, puck touches that you might enjoy a little more. Sometimes it's going to be hard work and gritty and greasy, and I think that's our room. The guys understand that, a majority of them, and if they can impart that into the younger guys coming in, that's how the circle of life continues. And that's why we've talked about our older guys a lot, that they're great at that part of the game, not only playing, but imparting knowledge to the younger guys so that they, now you're seeing the Colasars and the Howlands who probably got it from the last 2 years, and now we're going to have to pass it on to the Korzaks and the Holtz and so on, and that's how you sustain things.
Willie and then Paul.
Willard Bears for the Hockey News. Bruce, you touched upon special teams. Vancouver comes in with one of the best road power plays. That second penalty kill comes right after Carlson's goal. Very big there. What did you see coming into the game? Brett had mentioned you guys have done some film and brought up their power play, and how important it was to sort of shut that down tonight.
Yeah, well, the Hughes is a big part of their offense, 5-on-5 and power play. So him walking across the blue line, you have to know that he'll get it to the net at any moment. So our D have to be aware under sticks while still staying loose to get to those elbow shooters like Miller and Peterson. It's a tough job on the D, but that's what's in front of them. And it was good that we only took 2. That allows you to stay fresh. And we got clears. You know, there was no second chances where we're fatigued and now you're running around the seam start. So that was important, I thought, too, is we were able to get the puck down the ice whenever we got a handle on it. So you weren't spending the whole time doing it. So at the end of the day, good job. They had an off-net look from the elbow. I thought that was the most we gave up. They had a chance late at the end of the power play. I think it was Suter got one from the slot, but then we're still sorting out. So that was probably it. Good for the Killers. Usually means you're good sticks, you're in lanes. Forcing things to the outside is what you want to do, and force you to beat you from out there, and they didn't.
Take 3 more. Paul, Alan, Nick.
Hi Bruce, Paul Little Santos, NHL.com. You talked a lot about winning hockey over the course of the past winning streak, during the winning streak and just recently. Outside of Edmonton, what has been the biggest thing of playing winning hockey, especially in that third period?
Well, I think a little bit of not beating yourself, comfortable in the games we talked about, in those close games, not trying to do too much and then give up an odd man rush or a bad goal, so to speak. Goaltending's been stellar. That has a lot to do with it. I think patience, knowing that, hey, Minnesota's a good team, Winnipeg's a good team, they're playing good teams, no one's rolling over. So stay in the game, use everybody, try to stick to your identity by grinding it out. If you get a rush chance, great, but Carly's wasn't. We knew they weren't there tonight, so you're going to have to take something inside sooner or later and you know, kind of muck it around, and that's what happened. Happened in Minnesota, same thing. A net drive, Carlson, we put a puck to the net, happens to hit a body on the way. It wasn't a fancy goal by any means, so I think there's a little bit of that going on, and has been for a while now against these top teams in the West. That's, to me, that's just good teams going at it. Now, you're going to get the odd game where it's up and down. Edmonton was a little more of that. I thought we created lots of offense, didn't finish as well, they did. But at the end of the day, probably more, you're going to see more of the games like tonight against those top teams, and you know, we're fine with that. We're comfortable in those games. Our record backs that up.
Alan.
Hey Bruce, happy holidays. Quick question on just, I think you actually touched on the term that is like no panic, and I'm just kind of curious this year, how would you kind of put this team into context compared to the rest of the league in terms of a team that seems to play comfortably even when they're behind, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of body language panic, you know, even when they fall behind in the first period like tonight?
We have a lot. We're not, I'm going to guess, for our record, we're probably half and half of scoring first. We might even scored first less than the opposition, but as long as 1-0 doesn't become 2-0, that big save we talked about, now you're chasing it, right? And those are the ones that are tough. That's what happened in Edmonton in the second period. You know, it was one after another. Now we're chasing it, and good teams are like, well, you know, we'll shut this down. That's the type of league it is for, you know, most nights. You're not going to come back from 3 and 4. 1 is not a big deal. And I think our guys understand that. Okay, we can be better. We're better. Let's get to our game. There's a certain calmness there from the veteran guys talking on the bench. Between periods, we typically address stuff. Okay, you know, what's lacking? And sometimes there is, hey, you got to raise your voice so it'll get their attention. But a lot of other times it's just, listen, this is, you know, we talked about this. This is what they're doing. Here's what we need to do. Let's, you know, let's pay attention and get this done and play as a group of 5. And it's simple messages like that most of the time. I think our guys know it. Nobody wins a game in the first period. You can lose one usually, but no one's winning one in the first period. So let's get to our game eventually. And I think we're just, you know, we're comfortable with that. And would I rather be up 2-0 and 3-0 in the first period a little more often? Absolutely. It makes it easier on everybody. But that's the makeup of our team. As long as at the end of the night you're on the right side of it, then it's tough to complain, right? Or say, that's a bit of who we are right now, and we're going to try to fix our starts, but at the end of the day, I really like our middle and end. So, you know, let's, you know, that's part of the team building exercise throughout the year. You're always trying to fix something. We are winning and we know how to win. We win a lot of different ways, so let's not interrupt that part either.
Hey Bruce, Nick Walters, Channel 13. I know it's not the target on your back like last year being the defending champs, but just the target of being atop the division in the standings. What do you learn about these kinds of games, these divisional rivalry games when you're atop the standings, more so than just any other game?
Well, be curious to hear their part of it, right? That's when sometimes you leave town, you read the notes after, and it's like, well, they've got, they were the champ. They still say that, even though it was 2 years ago. So there's teams out there that respect the fact that we know how to win. And I hear that a lot still from other teams. And we're still, last year we're kind of up and down, but this year we're kind of back. Reminds me of the team 2 years ago a little more than last year for whatever reason. So now there's a little more of that talk to the first place team. We got to be ready. We got to bring our A game. And that's respect. It is from the other teams. And we do the same thing when we're going to play. We still talk about Colorado that way. They won a few years ago, and they've got some wagon players there, and you got to be ready to play, or they're going to stick it to you. So that's what we'd like to be. And there's teams like that out east that that hey, when they're on the schedule, we got to be ready, and that's what we want to be known as. And if we get everyone's best, that's okay. It means we're going to get better if you're always playing against top competition too. So I think our guys are really good with that, and that's what they want. They want to be considered one of the elites in the league, and we'll keep working towards that. I don't know, it's a little early to say what category we're in, but I know if we keep taking care of business, then we'll be in a good category.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.